Thanks for coming back to Law and Crime, where we're pivoting to Fulton County, Georgia for yet another update in the never-ending Young Thug RICO trial. Although the case has been on hold for the last few weeks, there has been a lot going on, and the newest judge will be back tomorrow for a hearing with attorneys. But let's back up for a second here. The initial presiding judge, Earl Glanville, was recused from the case by Judge Rachel Krause earlier this week. And shortly afterwards, the newly appointed Judge Shukura Ingram recused herself from the case. She cited a romantic relationship allegedly occurring between a deputy who worked in her courthouse and one of the severed defendants in the RICO case. You got all that? Well, the defendant being Christian Eppinger. Now, a third judge steps up, Judge Paige Reese Whitaker. Whitaker has been a Superior Court judge in Fulton County since 2017, and interestingly enough, recused herself from a murder case in 2021. Now we are left with a lot of questions. It's a good thing we have a great legal panel to possibly give us some answers and help us break down this trial. Trial attorney Bob Hilla and trial attorney federal litigator Alexis Rosenberg are back and ready to go. Bob, what are your thoughts on how Whitaker will proceed with the case, or how she should?
Well, it's interesting because two things are in play here. One are the defendant's rights, and the second is the public confidence in the impartiality of the process. That relates to the judges in this case and the role of the judge versus the juror. So, judges may be fungible in a case, jurors are not. They have to make the decision. The judge has to make sure as a gatekeeper that the evidence goes in properly and the defendant's rights are protected. So, if they can pick up where the others left off and those rights haven't been irreparably harmed, then we move forward.
And Alexis, is it concerning that she was recused from a case in the past? How common is that?
I don't think that's concerning. I mean, first of all, it was a while ago, but secondly, I don't think that really matters because it's really going to be specific to the exact case, the circumstance, and the situations. So I don't think that's going to have any impact. I do hope, though, that she's able to kind of rally everybody, get this a little more organized and on track. I think she needs to get, the first thing is this courtroom under control. I think they definitely had, the previous judge, a lack of control of the courtroom and the process and how we're going to go forward. This is really long. It's projected, I think, to go on for another year approximately. And I just don't know how any juror is going to sit there and have the attention span to be able to focus on what's being presented.
Now, something that could be concerning is that we believe she may have been connected to one of the key witnesses, Kenny Lil Woody Copeland's cases. Could this be a reason for yet another recusal, or could she simply decide against letting the state call him? Bob, what do you think?
Well, the connection of the case itself is not as significant. The question is whether her connection with that defendant is somehow impacting or affecting the rights of the defendants in this case. So, for instance, if there are some ex-party discussions that are going on and the defendant has a right to be involved in anything to do with this case, that raises certain questions. So, ultimately, the defendant's rights have to be protected and the public's confidence in the process preserved, and that's the judge's job.
And Alexis, going back to Judge Shukura Ingram here for a moment, how necessary do you think it was for her to recuse herself in this case?
I think she made the right decision. I think she should have recused. There was so much view of the previous judge that things weren't being done correctly, that to start off with that possible situation, I think what she did was correct. Also, she may not have just even wanted to be on the trial. I mean, this is a long trial, and when judges appointed, sometimes they don't want to be on the case even though they have to. But I think she made the right decision based on what was presented before the court.
Bob, I hope that we won't be collecting Social Security by the time this case ends.
I know we were talking about that.
Yeah, we were joking about that, but this case has been going on forever. But we are still glued to the tube watching it. All right. There is a meeting, by the way, with Judge Whitaker and the attorney, so we will learn more then and update you on any news that will come in regarding this case. Welcome back to Law and Crime, where we're heading back into Iowa for day 2 of Tyler Daisy's murder trial. The 29-year-old is charged in the murder of his mother and her dog. When authorities arrived to the scene, Daisy purportedly said that he believed his mother was practicing witchcraft. Let's get you back into court, where we're hearing testimony from a DNA analyst.
You can't talk at the same time. Were you able to develop a DNA profile?
Yes.
And whose DNA profile were you able to develop?
There was a mixture of DNA on this, and the profile of the major contributor was consistent with the known of Tyler Daisy.
Now, are you able to say that that's Tyler Daisy's blood?
No, I am not.
Okay. And that's because the DNA profile could have come from, well, skin cell DNA or hair DNA or any of the other sources of DNA that you would find in a bathtub drain.
Potentially, yes.
And you would expect to find somebody's DNA in the bathtub drain where they tend to bathe, wouldn't you?
I would say it would not be an unexpected finding to find their DNA there.
Okay. Item number 12. This is an interesting one. Item number 12 is a swab from possible blood stain on the top of the jewelry box in the bedroom. Is that right?
That's what it was listed as, yes.
Okay. You didn't actually see this jewelry box, you just saw the swab.
Correct. I only saw the swab.
Did you screen the swab for blood?
I did.
And did it test positive for blood?
Screening indicated the presence of blood on the swabs from jewelry box.
Did you test to see whether it was human or animal blood?
I did not.
Were you able to develop a DNA profile from the swab?
Yes.
And whose DNA profile were you able to develop from the swab?
The DNA profile developed matched the known of Jennifer Daisy.
Now, and this may seem silly, but you're not actually able to say that that DNA profile came from the blood, are you?
No, I cannot say that.
So you can't actually even say that that's Jennifer Daisy's blood, can you?
I cannot say that.
Moving on to item number 13. That was a swab collected from a blood stain on a bedroom wall. And I understand your testimony on direct examination was that some items you would expect to find more DNA accumulated on, more DNA sources accumulated on than others. That a bedroom wall, probably not as much.
Right, unless that is an area that is frequently touched on the wall, I would not expect a large amount of DNA there from normal living.
Okay. But it wouldn't be unusual to find somebody's DNA on their bedroom wall, would it?
No, I would not say that'd be an unexpected finding either.
Okay. Was item number 13 tested to determine whether or not there was blood present?
Yes, it was.
And what was the result of the test?
Screening indicated the presence of blood on the swabs from bedroom wall.
Did you test to see whether or not it was animal or human blood?
No, I did not.
Were you able to develop a DNA profile from the swab?
Yes, I was.
And as I understand it, that was Jennifer Daisy's DNA.
Correct.
Are you able to tell us whether or not that DNA came from the blood on the swab, or did it come, or could it have come from other sources of touch DNA on the swab?
I cannot say.
So you're not able to actually tell us whether or not that blood is Jennifer Daisy's blood either?
I cannot say that.
Let's move to State's Exhibit number 38. And I put that up there on the screen for you as well. The state didn't really talk about this one, but I think I want to talk about it just to emphasize the point. Item number 2, that was a nasal swab collected actually from Tyler Daisy, wasn't it?
That's what it was listed as, yes.
Okay. And you would expect to find Tyler Daisy's DNA in his nose, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Okay. It would be in the mucus in his nose. He's got hair in his nose. I mean, all those different sources.
Mucus and skin cells, yes.
Okay. Now, when you tested that, did you test it for the presence of blood?
I did.
Did it test positive for blood?
Screening indicated the presence of blood on the nasal swabs from Tyler Daisy.
Okay. Did you test that to determine whether or not it was human or animal blood?
I did not.
Were you able to develop a DNA profile from that?
Yes, I was.
And whose DNA profile were you able to find in the swab?
So there was no DNA factors foreign to Tyler Daisy in the profile developed from the nasal swabs.
So you found Tyler Daisy's DNA in the swab?
Yes.
Okay. But interestingly enough, you're not able to say that that was Tyler Daisy's blood, are you?
I am not.
And that would be for the same reasons we've discussed before, isn't it?
Yes.
Let's talk about item 10. All right. I understand that you screened two additional, item 10, you initially screened one area. Is that right?
I initially screened 3 areas.
Okay.
Actually, on the handle only.
Right.
Okay, so there's 3 areas on the handle that I screened initially.
Okay. When I look back at when you screened those 3 areas initially, what did you find in your report dated March 4th?
Screening indicated the presence of blood on 3 areas of the handle of the hatchet.
Okay. As I understand it, at that time, you only tested one for DNA?
Correct.
Okay. And that would be the one that's marked on the hatchet as 10.1?
Yes.
Okay. Did you find any DNA factors at that time?
Yes.
Were you able to develop a DNA profile?
The DNA factors were too weak for conclusive interpretation.
Did you test to determine whether or not that was human or animal blood?
10.1, I did not.
And I think you said that you also tested the blade and head of the hatchet?
Correct.
But you didn't find blood on the blade or head of the hatchet?
Yes. Screening did not indicate the presence of blood on blade and head of the hatchet.
Now, Looking at exhibit number 38, your report dated April 3rd. You then tested 2 more spots on the hatchet, as I understand it, 10.2 and 10.3. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, as I understand it, these 2 areas had already tested positive for the presence of blood.
Yes, screening indicated the presence of blood on those 2 areas.
Did you test to determine whether or not it was animal or human blood?
Yes,
Okay. And what were you able to determine?
it was human blood.
All right.
The screening test indicated.
For both 10.2 and 10.3?
Yes,
All right. And were you able to develop, as I understand it, a DNA profile on only 10.3?
yes,
And that was the DNA profile of Jennifer Daisy?
the major contributor was, yes.
Okay. And there was a minor contributor who wasn't identifiable?
Correct.
Were you able to detect any DNA on the blade of the hatchet?
Yes,
And I know you testified on direct examination a little bit about this, but the fact that you were able to detect DNA on the blade of the hatchet what does that indicate with regards to the likelihood that the hatchet was washed or cleaned or scrubbed?
I can't say. That's outside my area of expertise. I can't say whether that indicates or does not indicate cleaning.
But you actually did find touch DNA is what it would have to be, right?
I can't say the source of the DNA. I can just say it did not screen. The screening test did not indicate the presence of blood.
But there was DNA on the blade of the hatchet.
Yes,
Were you able to develop a profile?
there were factors detected, but not enough to make any interpretation.
With regards to the DNA profile that you developed on 10.3, all right, are you able to say definitively that that came from the blood?
No,
So you're not able to say whether or not that was Jennifer Daisy's blood?
I cannot say that.
Were you ever asked to test a shower curtain?